Welcome to the Wonder With Me podcast, where I, Dr. Tonia Winchester, invite you to get curious with me about all things mind-body healing, especially how we can unlock the incredible healing power of our unconscious minds, so that we can all get out of stress mode and go back into healing mode. We'll talk about how you can easily create healthy, sustainable self-care habits so that you can calm your mind, sleep deeply, wake rested, and enjoy happy, energized days. Ultimately, so that you can make a bigger difference in your well-being and that of your family and the world around you. These casual chats are for educational purposes only and don't constitute a therapeutic relationship. With all that said, let's get this episode underway. Come wonder with me. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Wonder With Me podcast. This is episode 35, Helpful Thoughts and How to Have Them. This episode came to be rather spontaneously, which I like, and it happened after a conversation with my husband, and it was perfectly aligned with something important that I cover in my new book called Thinking Kindly: 7 Steps to Stop Self-Criticism and Change Negative Thoughts into Positive Ones. So with that, let's get into it. Let's get wondering. Don't you love those types of relationships where you can be completely upfront and call each other out on whatever BS is going on for them? My husband will often give me my medicine that I've doled out in either podcasts or blog posts or even my books, and he'll feed it back to me. And most of the time, this is pretty annoying, even though I love it at the same time. A, he's paying attention, and B, he is properly applying my ideas. Now, in this instance, the table was turned. I gave him a dollop of medicine, which I'm sure will come back to me at some point and slap me upside the head, figuratively, not literally. The conversation went like this. My husband says, "Okay, I think I've got a preliminary sketch that I can send to my clients." And I say, "Great, they're going to love it." And then he starts saying, and they're going to come back being like, "Does it have to be that color? Does it have to be that texture?" And I was like, "Stop. You are dropping a bunch of hypotheticals here. They're going to love it. And if they don't love it, you can adapt it. Does it have to be that color?" And he just flips back into this imagined conversation back and forth with this client. And I say, "Honey, you're dropping into scenarios that don't exist yet." And then he says something cute. He says, "Well, I'm allowed to scenario-ize." And I said, "That's true. And is it helpful?" And he goes, "Of course not, but I'm allowed to." And he's right. Of course he's allowed to. He's allowed to do whatever he wants. He's a grown-ass man. And just because we're allowed to do something, in this case, scenario-ize problems that might arise in the future, is it helpful? And in some cases, yes, it can be really helpful to stoically think through specific outcomes and how you will respond and how you will adapt. And then in some cases, I question if it is helpful. We spend a lot of our time worrying about what's to come in the future. We spend a lot of time overthinking about how we can manage all of those things about what's to come in the future. There's billion-dollar industries based on our worry, fear, and concern about what's to happen in the future. For example, insurance and big pharma and these other big corporate institutions that put the fear of death and the fear of being injured and the fear of being sick into us. This is not a podcast about those big corporations and how they're operating in the world. Let's bring this back home into our own minds. So, did you know that it's estimated that we think at least 6,200 thoughts per day? Now, if you're counting and doing some quick math, that is approximately one new thought every 10 to 14 seconds. We're allowed to have whatever thoughts we want. We can have thoughts that are worrisome. We can have thoughts that are looping. We can have thoughts that are negative and directly judgmental and derogatory to our own selves. We can have thoughts that are projected outwards to others that paint others in a terrible light. We can have all these thoughts. We are allowed to as human beings with free will. And then the question becomes, what I will circle back to, is it helpful? So science is showing us more and more about how our minds are constantly just making up stories in the form of conscious thoughts. That these stories and thoughts shape our ability to heal in all areas of our lives. And so since we're allowed to think whatever we want, my thoughts and maybe your thoughts are we might as well make up good stories and have good thoughts that help us focus on the feelings and the outcomes that we want, because we're allowed to do that too. We're up against a lot of things as human beings, and the tapes we play inside our own minds, it doesn't really make it any better, and frankly probably makes it worse. There's this cascade of events that happens from our observing our environment through our five senses, that information coming inside our minds, our unconscious mind filtering that information extensively. Millions of bits of information are coming at us in any given second, and unconsciously we delete a lot of that information, we distort it, so we make it something that it's not, and we generalize it, so we take one thing and apply it to many things. What we think inside our mind is not reality. However, those thoughts then get transformed into feelings inside our bodies and physical states, and the feelings and states drive our behavior, and our behavior drives our results. So while we're allowed to think whatever the F we want, if there's certain things in your life that you want, better health, better relationships, better impact, better career possibilities, focusing on what you don't want will only get you more of what you don't want because of how this cascade plays out. Now, I keep using the word helpful. Is it helpful? Because my husband's thoughts and the things that he was spurting out weren't necessarily negative. He was just in this fantasy of this conflict that hadn't yet happened. There's an excerpt out of my book, Thinking Kindly, in chapter 1, where I talk about the difference between negative versus unhelpful thoughts, and of course, the flip of that, positive versus helpful thoughts. And here's the paragraph. In this book, I might often refer to negative thoughts as unhelpful ones. While these words are not synonymous, I invite you to start categorizing thoughts in this way. Is this an unhelpful thought or a helpful thought? Why? Because as you'll learn in later chapters, we are meaning-making machines and often have a very black or white view on the world. Things are good or things are bad. What I'd like to offer is that even a bad thought could be helpful, and even a good thought could be unhelpful. For example, the thought, I'm not ready for this presentation, might seem negative, but it also might be helpful in that it might spur the person on to spend more time researching, preparing, practicing, asking for feedback, and practicing. This would ultimately result in a better, more impactful presentation and likely a better connection with their audience. Conversely, at first glance, the thought, this can only get better, might seem really positive, optimistic. But it might actually lead one to unrealistic expectations of perfection, which can set someone up for disappointment or failure, thereby being an unhelpful thought. It also implies that something is not good now, that it's in a state where it needs to get better, and who are we to judge that? It's not good or bad that matters, it's what is going to help us to recover from the spiral of self-criticism, subsequent disease states, and lack of fulfillment in our lives that matters. And this is exactly what I mean about helpful thoughts. The question that I would like you to leave this podcast with is, as you're starting to think about your thinking and starting to witness your thoughts and starting to wonder about thinking differently and kindly, is this a useful thought? Is this thought something that will help you to be the person you want to be, to do the things you want to do, and to have the things you want to have? And if not, then I highly suggest you find a way to change that unhelpful thought into a helpful one. And my book, if I haven't mentioned, the title is Thinking Kindly, can help you do exactly that. And that has to be the beginning place, a pause and a questioning. Is this helpful? Is this useful? And you'll get a gut hit, just like my husband did when he was like, of course not. You'll get a gut hit about whether that's true or not, whether that's helpful or useful or not. And from there, you learn to adapt and learn to transform and reframe your thinking so that it is helpful, it is useful to who you want to be, what you want to do, and what you want to have. And I go through this in my new book. I have a 7-step process that I've tested and tested and tested and tested with my own health journey and healing journey, and with that of many clients and patients. It's a 7-step strategy to change negative thoughts, aka unhelpful thoughts, into helpful ones. Why don't I put that on the title as the subtitle? Because people haven't reframed this for themselves yet. So to have searchability on Amazon, true story, the words in the subtitle are negative thoughts and positive ones. So this is your dollop of medicine today. I hope that this is helpful to give you a little bit of a new perspective on your thinking. I highly suggest checking out my new book. It is due out very soon. You can head over to toniawinchester.com. In the bottom right corner of the screen, there's a chat bot, and you'll be able to drop us a message. And we will put your name on the list for when this new helpful book comes out into the world. Thank you so much for being here, for thinking about your thinking and how you can do a better job of being more kind to yourself and to your fellow human beings with helpful thoughts. I look forward to connecting soon, and in the meantime, may you choose to make all of your dreams come true. I was just about to export the MP3 of this audio, and another thought came to me that I wanted to add on. So I'm sorry if the sound quality is different, or if my voice sounds different. It's a different day at a different time, etc. One of the things that often gets asked of me when I'm working with my mind-body healing clients to help them release unwarranted and inappropriate negative emotions from the past is they say, "Isn't feeling important?" Yes, feeling is important. Feeling is what makes our experience as human beings rich and varied and interesting. And what we will quote unquote call negative emotions, I'll just list off what are called the big 5: anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. When we feel these things because of experiences in our past and experiences in our future, they're made up. They're not happening in real time. So then me as a coach will qualify those emotions as inappropriate and unwarranted because they're not in the now. I'm going to record a podcast that goes into this a little bit more thoroughly in the next little while. So my mom used to say, keep your eyes peeled for that, I guess, even though it's a podcast. Maybe I should do videos. Is it a sign? Okay, let's not get too squirrely here. If you are being triggered into an emotion from something that occurred in the past, that emotion, according to my criteria and what I see to be helpful, as we're talking about helpful thoughts here and helpful emotions, is that is now inappropriate and unwarranted. And it's not that I'm working with people to turn them into emotionalist robots. That's not what it's about. But what it is allowing us to do when we clear those grips that keep us anchored into the past and the pain of the past is when we clear those grips and release those anchors, we are now free to choose how we want to feel. What is the most helpful, affirmative, protective way to think and feel? We didn't have that choice before because of those automatic patterns that were triggering us back into the past or into the future. And it's not like you can't feel anger or sadness or fear anymore. Those things are still going to be part of your experiential landscape. The difference is your choice around them. The difference is how long you decide to keep them. And I used to say to clients, well, of course I'm still going to feel those things. Of course you're still going to feel those things. If someone were to break into my house, of course I would be angry. I'd be scared. Of course. And then I heard something that changed my mind about that. And this is going to circle back to exactly the conversation that my husband and I had earlier on. What changed my mind about that was a conversation that I was listening to between an interviewer and the Dalai Lama. And of course, the Dalai Lama is just giggly and joyful and peaceful all the time. Such delightful energy to have around. And the reporter is just provoking, like, well, what if, and asking these types of questions, well, what if someone broke into your house? Wouldn't you feel X, Y, Z? And in my mind, I'm like, of course, like it's just because he's the Dalai Lama doesn't mean he's not going to feel those things. I'm thinking, of course. And he answers, he says, wouldn't it be interesting to find out? Wouldn't it be interesting to find out how he feels, how he would feel in that moment? What he's not willing to do in this moment is to predict what he's going to feel in that moment, because that moment's not here yet. And so even him saying, I would feel scared, I would feel angry if someone broke into my house, he's not willing to do that, because in this moment, for him, those emotions don't exist, they're inappropriate and they're unwarranted. So, coming back to this idea of my husband spinning his wheels about what the client's going to come back with, for his designs, if they approve or not, or if they have questions, or if they have this, or if they da-da-da-da, wouldn't it be interesting to find out? What a helpful approach. And of course, to close that loop for you, the clients love the designs and he's busy building away this new project for them. Wouldn't that be interesting to find out? Is such a helpful approach to this type of thing, because it honors that, yes, you will feel things in the future. That is unavoidable. It also honors that feelings could just be interesting and not labeled as good or bad. It just could be something that we get curious about. And it also honors the fact that right here and right now, that you're okay. I thought that was the perfect way to wrap up this episode. Thank you again for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for getting curious about your thinking, about your feeling, about how you behave in the world. Because I know that the fact that you're here and you're listening means that you want change and that you're willing to consider new ideas for that change to happen. And I'm honored that you're spending your time in this way. So thank you. I will catch you in the next one. And in the meantime, may you choose to make all of your dreams come true. Hey, thanks for wondering with me today. If you've got something good out of this, then please forward this episode along to the people who you know could benefit. Be sure to subscribe, and if you're really keen, you leaving us a rating and review helps us to help more people, so thank you in advance for that. If you're wanting more insights about how you can leverage the power of your unconscious mind to go back into healing mode, head on over to toniawinchester.com, where you'll find my book, Breakthrough the Insomnia Cycle, and other helpful ideas. Thanks again, and we'll connect on the next episode of the Wonder With Me podcast. In the meantime, may you choose to make all of your dreams come true.